It's hey, we're playing.
Hey, Trev,
fast.
here's one for you. Do you
Okay.
know who sings that song?
Little Bow Wow.
No, sir. No, way
Basketball
before
is a
Bow
favorite
Wow
sport.
time.
I like the way to dribble up and down the court. That's the Bow Wow version, I know. Well, who's the original version?
I believe it was Curtis Blow.
Okay, you can't say I believe. You gotta know.
you can't.
Sure. All right, I'm gonna
You
look it
got
up
30
right now.
seconds to
I'm
Google
looking
it
up right now.
Google
We're
that
playing
right now.
basketball song.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
Curtis
man,
Blow.
These two.
It is.
It
Curtis
is.
Blow. I told you. This is from the 80s. It's from my time, son.
Okay, all right.
You're
He's
encroaching
stumped
on my territory now, son.
Stoner the Stumper today.
Well, hopefully it doesn't stump our guests that we have on for our Wizards season preview coming up right here on Ref the District.
I'm a pretty bad kid.
Yeah, let's talk about the bigger picture. Let's talk about how we be ballin', playing with the Wizards. Let's talk about the Nats and how they always got good pitches. Let's talk about the Cats, how Rex can turn them boys to winners. Injuries and updates, oh yeah. To the opponent, we stand toe to toe, yeah. To the top, this podcast gonna go, yeah. I think it's something you should know, yeah.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Ref the District's Washington Wizards season preview. I'm Nathan Perry. With me, as always, it's Trevor.
What's going on? Basketball season is back. The NBA is back, and the Wizards are back.
They absolutely are. And we got the Stoner in the house.
Absolutely looking forward to this season. There's some hope.
Yep.
There's a little bit of hope for the Wizards this year.
We all know what hope is like in Washington sports, so we'll see how it goes.
doesn't go very far. I think about 6 games into the season, it seems, and then things tend to go. Later on, we'll have Carita Parks joining us and Chase Hughes as well. And of course, we welcome you in our comment section as we talk about our Washington Wizards. We got Mama Stores in the house.
What up, Mom?
We're streaming this live on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch channels. Will be up on our audio platforms afterwards. And of course, Ref the District is sponsored by Pacers Running. So get your shoes in one of their 6 locations located in DC or Northern Virginia, or hit them up online. Get your online fitting and get your shoes. I got my shoes coming in. I'm so excited for those shoes, man.
I still need to do my fitting.
Oh, you're killing me with this, Trevor. You gotta get your fitting done.
Okay, Dad, I will get my fitting done.
That's right.
Tomorrow.
That's right, son. I need you to take care of your obligations.
Yes, sir. What up, Cam Mingo? Mingo in the building.
Mingo in here. We got Joseph Cobb in here.
Joseph
we got
Cobb.
Jazzy in the chat. Appreciate all those joining us live. Let us know what you are expecting from the Washington Wizards this season. And as we continue on, join us, of course, as we talk. And then when we have Carita on, if you have some questions, throw those in there. Maybe we'll get those up for her. Chase, we did have to record, but we had a great 15 minutes or so with him. Great section. Stick around for that a little bit later. Gents, one of the things that we were cheering on the beginning of this year was Scotty's got to go. Scotty's got to go. Well, Scotty's gone.
Yep.
Wes Unseld Jr. has the reins to the franchise right now. What do you guys think? Do you think do you think that his inaugural season, do you think that this is going to be successful? Is this going to end up in the playoffs with maybe a decent showing, or is there going to be enough chemistry issues? Because they have had a lot of turnover with personnel. What are you thinking for this first season?
Wes Unseld comes from a defensive background. He was doing that at Denver Nuggets as assistant coach. And I think with the pieces that the Wizards brought in this offseason on the defensive side of the ball to pair with Wes Unseld's teachings, I think they've got a legit shot to be a playoff team in the East. I don't know if they'll be a solidified seed. I see them maybe in the play-in tournament that was adopted from last year that they're doing again this year. But, hey, you never know. They got Kuzma. Spencer Dinwiddie coming off of a bad ACL injury. We don't know what he's got to offer, but preseason looks like he's okay, ready to go. Bradley Beal is Bradley Beal. They just inked Daniel Gafford to that contract.
Yeah.
Bright future for him. So we'll see what happens.
without ruining the interview that we had with Chase, one of the things that he said was that it's a good regular season roster. They have a lot of depth. They have some decent talent. But once you get to the playoffs and you start playing teams that have 2 and 3 superstars, you're going to struggle when you've got one. Mm-hmm. You've got one superstar. So somebody has to step up and become that next guy, that second guy, or maybe even that third guy. Maybe that's Gafford. I think it's a little too early for him to be something like that. Maybe that's Dinwiddie. Maybe that's Harrell. Who knows? Somebody has to if they want to go make a deep run.
Hey,
I don't think they have the roster
actually.
Oh my no! Get out of Bertans need to go. I don't know what they're doing with him.
No. You haven't
Joseph
in our last summer or last.
No, I wasn't. But I did see that Ofer performance in 24 minutes that he put up and 6 fouls.
I am on record as not being a Bertans guy. Joseph's, states that our roster is better than the Hawks roster at the beginning of last year. Hawks were able to make a pretty deep playoff run.
Yeah,
similar situation for the Hawks where they only have one superstar.
Yeah,
and they just went around with that defensive coach change and started just playing some amazing basketball. Didn't quite make it to the end, but impressive for a young franchise. To be able to, not young franchise, but a young team, to be able to do that.
Well, that was the key for them, was that some of those young guys, kind of like what I was talking about, these other guys that have to step up, their young guys did. Their John Collins stepped up. Kevin Huerter stepped up.
Yeah.
And then they had Clint Capella, who played out of his mind. And, of course, Trae Young is obviously a superstar. So they had those guys develop and step up, and that launched them deeper into the playoffs than anybody expected. That's what the Wizards need. They need those guys who are not necessarily stars right now to develop into not superstars, but stars. Somebody who can carry the load when Brad has an off night, like Westbrook could do last year.
Yeah,
but they need Dinwiddie to be almost a superstar. They need him to be a star. They need Gafford to be a star. They need Kuzma. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, you would think with Kuzma coming from LA, bringing that championship mentality, that LeBron James mentality, that could provide some true help for them too. You kind of want Spencer Dinwiddie from the Nets days to come and perform for the Wizards. So yeah, they've got a legit shot to be a playoff team.
And don't sleep on those other role players, the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who doesn't demand the ball. He just goes out there and he busts his butt and he plays defense. He hits threes. The same thing as Kuzma. He brings that championship experience. So guys like that, Montrezl Harrell, who we're going to fall in love with. I promise you that. We're going to fall in love with Montrezl Harrell.
You think so?
He is a high energy effort guy.
He's one of those high energy. Look at last year. A lot of people fell in love with Neto. He's not exactly a great player, but he just played with a lot of energy, and fans love that.
Feed off of that.
And they do. They absolutely feed off of that energy. And you guys brought up a lot of the newer players. Who's the holdovers? We've talked about, obviously, we tease about Bertans not living up to his contract, but who from the holdovers is going to elevate their game or live up to expectations? Because there's still some high expectations for some of their younger players that they had last year.
I can't believe we haven't even said this at all, but Rui's back.
We got to talk to Carita about Rui.
Okay, 100%. But Rui's back.
Noticeable name you guys did not mention in the first 8 minutes here. Rui was absent in that conversation.
They said he looks good. He's not traveling with the team for the opener tomorrow, but to stay back and work on some drills and stuff and get back in shape or whatever. But he's back. Who else do we have? Bradley Beal, obviously, of course.
Yeah, you really don't have that many. You just got you've got Beal, Neto, Rui, Bertans,
Thomas Bryant,
and Bryant, who didn't play much because he got hurt so early in the year.
Comes back in about December or so. You have Denny.
Avdia.
Avdia, yeah.
I think that he plays a little bit more role. I honestly think that Scott Brooks didn't really play him to his full potential, and I think that you're going to see him. I'm not looking to him to be a superstar right off the bat, but I mean,
just a role player.
he's going to be a solid role player. I think that he has some ball skills that the team will need as they move that around, and I think that he'll be a pretty exciting player to watch develop as the season goes on. So
I watched a lot of the preseason games, and they didn't play. I mean, they lost them all. I believe those results don't really matter, especially like the game against the Knicks. They were up by 19, but in the fourth quarter they were playing Kispert and Neto and and end of the bench kind of guys. So, and the Knicks were playing all Derrick Rose and Julius Randle. They were playing all their studs all the way through the game. So they came back and won that. But I was impressed with what I saw. I was impressed with the defensive intensity. The statistics don't bear that out from the preseason, that's for sure. But I was impressed with the way that they were playing. And so that gives me a little bit of hope with all the new guys, the old guys, all that.
I'm going to listen to you, Stoner, because before the show, you were talking about how you manifested two things involving the Wizards.
He did.
You said way back when, you said Wes Unseld Jr. was going to be the new head coach of the Wizards.
I did.
There he is. And I don't know how in the world you got this right, but you said that they would select Corey Kispert from Gonzaga in the draft.
I did.
Bada boom, bada bing.
Yeah,
like,
called the coach about, I think, 3 months in advance before Scott Brooks was even let go, and then he called Kispert about 3 days before the draft.
So, Stoner, go ahead and say we're going to the ship, baby. Say it.
Well, we're not.
Say it.
We're not. We're definitely not. But I will
You
say
can't give
this:
us that hope, Stoner. You can't give us.
I
that
think
hope.
I think the over under in Vegas is, depending on what books you look at, is around 33 and a half, 34 wins, 35, somewhere around there. I think they're going over that. I don't think they're flying over that. I don't think they're going into the mid 40s or anything like that. I don't think they're that good. But I think they're going to battle for that, like you said, Trev, 7th, 8th, 9th spot, the play-in games. And that's just kind of what I think. I'm not a Wizards whisperer. I mean, literally, it's not like I have sources that where I was tapping into about it. But I did call it. I did say Wes Unseld Jr. like 3 months early. Twice. And then like 3 days before the draft, I said they're drafting Kispert. That's just the vibe I got.
You called it.
Yeah. Again, I don't have any sources. That was just the vibe. I got lucky.
Speaking of sources, let's bring a source in here right now.
It is time. It's he might not have his sources, but I'm pretty sure
we now have ours.
This young lady does here. Let's welcome Carita Parks, Wizards reporter for SportsJourney.com and founder of Double Take Sports. This is Miss Carita Parks. Thanks for joining us here on Ref the District's Washington Wizards season preview.
Oh, I unmuted her.
She got yep, there you go.
Thanks for having me.
There we go. Sorry about that. So, Carita, so what's this Double Take Sports thing you got going on? You're the CEO of that. Why don't you tell us a little bit what that is?
Yeah, Double Take Sports is my online sports media company. The platform, I use it to write articles that I believe kind of tell another side of the story. I do a lot of analysis in my freelancing. So for sportsjourney.com, I also write for 3 Point Conversion. So this is an opportunity for me to I have a PR background. So sometimes I feel like I see things from a little bit of a different perspective. So I like to use Double Take Sports to write stories that kind of give a unique angle on some of the sports topics going on. And also we've been credentialed for Super Bowl and WNBA. So I still do some analysis on that site as well.
Very nice.
And if you need some insiders, some reporters to go to any of these events, you got three guys right here on the side over here.
There it is.
Right there for you.
That works for me.
You were talking about on Twitter just a little while ago that you were at an event earlier today with we were talking about prognostication, who I think is going to be the next president of the United States, Governor Larry Hogan from Maryland. What was that event about? Why were you over there talking with the Gov?
Yes, it was a grand opening for like I said, my background is in PR. So it was a grand opening for a research facility at Johns Hopkins. And so the governor was there taking tours, and he also spoke at the event, but getting some background on some of the research that's done there. In particular, they've done a lot with COVID and just some other areas of research. So kind of the boring stuff, but hey, PR is what I do. So
exactly.
besides my journalistic endeavors.
Word.
Well, let's talk about the Wizards right now.
Let's do it.
And let's so what's the feeling around? There's a new coach in town, lots of new players. What's really the feeling there in the practice facility as they've been, working it out in preseason, getting these drills together and kind of learning each other?
Yeah, there's a lot of upside. There's a feeling of this team can be good, but they also understand they have to find their way, right? They know that they're still building chemistry. They talked a lot in their preseason press conferences about finding chemistry with each other. So I think that is the major, what they're really focused on right now is finding that chemistry, who's good at what, what's the rotations going to be, also getting to know their new head coach. So there's a lot of newness, but also a lot of promise. And I think they all see that. They have to buy into the system, but they're getting there.
So you said the word promise. Did you see anything that kind of showed that during the preseason this year, just from watching some of the games and some of the different lineups that were in there?
So it's interesting, right? Because they didn't win any of the preseason games. But from my perspective, I did feel like they got better each game. And then the last game, they were right there. They could have won that game. They put the bench in. The Knicks had their star players in. So, they could have definitely won that game. Otherwise, I believe. So just seeing them get better over the games, to me, that is something that everyone has to pay attention to because that's what it's about. If they were digressing, that would be an issue. But to see them actually getting better, I think is, like I said, promising.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the touchy subject that we don't want to really we don't want to make light of the situation, but is in relation to the basketball team, the Wizards basketball team. What's going on with Rui? Why? Not necessarily why he was out. We don't need to know why he was out. But is this something that they're going to have to deal with the entire season of him possibly missing chunks of games?
I hope not. We don't know until the season starts. But, with Rui, I think it was a lot of change. You're coming into the NBA, and yes, he, now he's going into his third season, but there's been a lot. There's been COVID. He came in young. And I think that for some guys, they can't necessarily mentally handle all of those changes. Speaking two languages, he has to deal with the Japanese press and the English press. So he has two press conferences that he has to worry about. So I think it might be a lot of pressure for someone his age and someone so young. But at the end of the day, you have to deal with it. However, if he's taking care of his mental and he might have some issues that we don't know about, it is hard to judge, right? I think the team's been very patient with him. The coach has been very patient with him. And I think we just have to wait and see on Rui. I do hope that it's not something that does linger into the season. But now he's a bit behind because he wasn't there during the preseason, and he needed those preseason reps.
Right.
He really did. So hopefully we don't see this linger on into the season.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the promising players for Washington these last couple of seasons, and you wanted to see more from him, and hopefully they will be able to see more from him as he works his way back into some playing time. Bradley Beal is someone who we see a lot of, and I think with this roster, it seems like it's deeper than he's had surrounding him in years past. What's his season going to look like? Is this going to be another one of these kind of MVP seasons where he's putting up like 30 points, or is this going to be a little bit more mild because he doesn't have to do all of the work?
That's a really good question. I think the nature of Bradley Beal, he's going to try to strive for an MVP season. But I do, to your point, he doesn't have to do all the work. He has more help now. They brought in Dinwiddie, and he looks good. He looks like he has healed well from his ACL injury. There's some depth now to help Bradley Beal, so he doesn't have to do all the work and he can get some rest. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a milder season from him, but just the nature of Bradley Beal, he's going to want to play as many minutes as he can play. But it's nice to not have to play those minutes because you have no help. So this year, you have that help.
Very true. So with all the new pieces that were brought in this offseason, barring no injury, where do you see the Wizards in the Eastern Conference this year? High upper, lower, wave bottom below? If everybody gels together, where are the Wizards landing in the East?
I can see them around maybe 10th, 9 or 10 in the East. I think it's going to take some time for them to find their rhythm. I believe in the middle of the season, we'll probably see them finally kind of gelling and coming together and taking off. I definitely think they have an opportunity to maybe shoot for the play-in. I don't think it's going to be an automatic like, hey, they're in the playoffs, but they could be in another situation where they are fighting for a play-in spot to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So Nathan up there at the top, Trevor there in the middle. They do not like Davis Bertans.
Nah, dog, he's trash.
This guy here,
that was my next question, actually.
Likes Davis Bertans.
Okay.
He struggled last year. There's no doubt, but he had some games where he carried the team, where he hit 7 3-pointers. And he had some really great. He was like 7 of 11 from 3. Who's just solve it for us? Who's right? Am I right, or are these two guys over here right? What is Davis Bertans?
Okay, so I think you're both right.
Okay.
And this is why I say that. And I'm not being politically correct, but this is why I say that, right? Because Davis, he is key. When he is hot, he is hot. And when he hits those threes, like you said, he has bailed the Wizards out in some times. He struggled last year. He had a lot of issues. He came into the season late, and there was COVID, and I just don't think he ever caught his rhythm. But at the same time, I see where Nathan and Trevor are coming from, because when you are making as much money as Davis is making, you need to show up every game, and nobody has a lot of patience for you struggling. So I think if Davis was on a contract that wasn't as much as it is, there wouldn't be so much focus on, well, is he performing or is he not performing? But when you get paid like that, you got to perform.
Yeah, we can't have the more 0 for games, Stoner, 6 fouls, bro. We can't.
You don't pay that price for that streaky of a shooter.
I hear you. But I'm not a guy who worries about contracts unless those contracts are prohibiting you from signing other guys, and I don't think that's the case, especially in the NBA. I mean, just look at the Golden State Warriors payroll. Look at the Lakers payroll. They'll pay whatever it takes, or whatever guys will actually go there. But so Bertans, I mean, why are we so mad at him for making $16 million a year? He's good. Maybe he's not $16 million worth, but what do you care what he made? I'm not saying you, Carita. I'm saying, why do we care how much money the guy makes? It's not stopping them from signing another free agent or re-signing Beal or anything like that.
Wait a second. I think somebody's trying to call me out. Hold on.
Oh, you're reading that right there?
Yeah, this is from Sportshead on our YouTube. And when Davis balls out, everyone needs to not say anything. Don't give him props, etc. So if he wasn't making the money, it would be okay. That's such a contradiction.
No, it's exactly right. He wasn't making that much money. Yeah, it was to me, not to you, Carita. I got you.
Calling out Trev.
It is. If he's not making that much money, then we wouldn't care about the 0 for stats and the 6 fouls. Like, he's a end of the bench role player guy, but he's making a lot of money to where they could give somebody else with a better track record.
I think his averages ended up being fine, but the thing is, and we're talking about the deep rotation that the Wizards have. The really, really good teams have 2 or 3 star players. The Wizards only have 1, really, Bradley Beal. Who are the 2 or 3 players around him right now that can step up or maybe make that next step that takes Washington to that next level?
You said who are the other ones around him?
Yeah, who are the current players on the roster that might be able to take that next step? That, we already said that Washington's looking like a 9 or 10 seed, but who are those? Who is going to be number 2 star or the 3rd star that helps? Who's bailing out Bradley if he has a bad game? Because if it's not Davis, because he's streaky and Rui is kind of having to work himself back in, there's no Westbrook this year. Dinwiddie is coming back from this ACL injury. I love the extension that was given out, but let's face it, that's not an offensive player that got that extension. So who is that second or third star that's really going to help the Washington Wizards be propelled as the season goes on?
Yeah, I don't know if I would go. I mean, to your point, I think, star, there's not a lot of stars, but I think Raul Neto, people are not thinking about him, but he stepped up pretty big last season and helped Brad out and Westbrook out in a lot of cases. I think we're going to see him take another step this year. So I definitely think that we need to think about him as a possible option. Who else?
And that's it. And that's really
Kyle Kuzma. Is he going to step up, or is he just going to be the same Kyle Kuzma that he's always been?
Yeah. What'd you say about Kuzma, Trav?
Is Kuzma going to try to step in and help take that leadership role a little bit with Bradley Beal, or is he just going to?
I was considering Kuzma because I believe we're going to get a different version of Kyle Kuzma
I think so too.
In Washington, because he doesn't have the pressure that you have when you're on a Lakers roster and it's about win now. It's kind of about win now here too, but not in the same sense of when you're with the Lakers. Like you all get it. So I think we're going to see a different version of Kyle Kuzma. And I also think that he has the possibility to step up in that leader role too. He was a little inconsistent in the preseason, but when he was consistent, he was balling out. So I think we'll see that a little more as the season progresses.
Very nice.
And to also ask this question that we kind of ask everybody when we're talking about the Wizards, is Bradley Beal going to be here in 22 and beyond?
So
your opinion.
This time, I will say, I think it depends on how this season goes, in all honesty, because Bradley's been a mainstay and he's been through a lot of different teams since he decided to stay. This is the deepest I've seen the Wizards roster in a couple of seasons. So I think that's definitely a thumbs up. But for me, I really think it depends on how this season goes and if he really thinks that this team can win a championship or get there in the next couple of seasons. But I personally think this is a make or break season for the Wizards as far as Bradley Beal and his decision to stay.
Very nice.
Because he stayed. He's rode it out. So you got to make a decision at some point.
Yeah, he's ridden out worse teams. Some catastrophic seasons.
Right.
And he's had chances to go too, and he hasn't.
Yeah,
he doesn't gone.
So how long are you going to really do that?
Yeah. So Carita,
hopefully this season shows a lot of promise. I don't know if a 9th or 10th seed is going to be enough.
I mean, that's where I am now. I don't think they're going to make such a huge, leap, but
I have one more for you. So what would have to happen this season in order to get some more free agents to start looking Washington's way to be like, that's a possible good place for me to play? What would have to happen this season to draw some big name free agents to come and maybe help Bradley Beal if he decides to stay?
Well, obviously winning.
Besides the obvious championship, but like being realistic,
they definitely will have to get more W's. They definitely have to get more W's. I think if they make the playoffs, not having to, go through the whole play-in scenario, I think that'll have people looking our way. I also think it depends on Coach Unseld Jr. And how people may see him moving this team forward. If they see that he's a good coach and he's really developing this team, I think that will also have people looking Washington's way as well. But I think if Washington can just make it to the playoffs, skipping the play-in, if like I said, if Coach Unseld Jr. is showing upside with this team, and I think if people can, if they start to really ball out and gel and look like a good team, I definitely think, other free agents will start looking Washington's way.
Very nice.
One can hope.
We're
Hopefully,
done.
there are good
Yeah, I hope.
50 win seasons in the
50
future
wins.
for Washington.
We call Michael
That'd be-
Jordan
that'd
that.
be
be
nice.
optimistic about them though. I do. I will say the Kuzma, Caldwell-Pope, the guys that came in from the Lakers, they bring a different kind of focus. I mean, when they're in their press conferences, they're all business. They have personality, but it's just a different energy that they definitely bring to the team.
Very
Like
nice.
they're focused, very focused.
Good. I'm excited. Carita got me hyped.
I know, right? Let's go. Let's go.
Now
Let's
don't
play
bring
it.
me on mid-season like Carita. What happened?
Nah, we definitely gonna do that.
We're definitely
gonna do that,
bringing
and we're
on.
gonna blame
Hopefully,
you.
it's not going to be what happened. Hopefully, it's
Right,
going to be hey, let's
We'll be
everything's
talking
going
about
right.
Good stuff.
They traded Bradley Beal. What?
Carita, you promised they wouldn't trade him.
Yeah, no joke.
Well, we do appreciate you jumping on here with us. This is Miss Carita Parks. She's a Wizards reporter for SportsJourney.com and founder of Double Take Sports. Thank you again for joining us here on Ref the District's Washington Wizards season preview.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Carita. See ya.
Yeah, we'll
Bye.
see you soon.
Bye. All right, we got the comments are jumping. Let's get to these comment sections. I'll give the guys their equal space here. Not gonna. Let's see here. So we got Joseph Cobb saying that it's going to be Trez, Kuzma, and Dinwiddie that are all going to step up. Talking when we're talking
kinda
about
have
the big three. You know what's surrounding.
Mhm.
When we're on the Bertans talk, Cam Mingo, even though I like Bertans, but with Gafford getting his money, Bertans is likely going to get traded this season.
That's a good point.
I do think Bertans is a likely trade target. The problem is, what are you going to get in return if he
Nothing.
doesn't play
The same thing he gave us.
Yeah, but it's
Nothing.
going to be difficult. But Sportshead sounds like a big Bertans guy, I think. Because
Let's who would you give that money to? Tell me
and
who's going to give you a better stat line.
yeah, in reference to Davis Bertans, who are you going to give him that money to? And this is one thing that I have arguments with Stoner all the time when it comes to the Bertans situation. I don't like him because he's a streaky shooter, and I see those 0 for games. I see those 1 for 5 games. But then he has these games where he's 7 for 7 or he's like 7 for 9, and he's just absolutely lights out. And then so in the season, he ended up being, I think it was a 38 or somewhere around there percentage shooter from 3.
Right.
So respectable, maybe not as much money as they gave him.
You got to
but
go.
reasonable. You just hope you want to see that a little bit more with, you want to see that percentage point
He got to go.
on a regular basis, not so
Nope.
streaky.
He's going to prove you wrong.
I hope he does. I really hope he does, because if he
I'm going to put a
proves us
dollar
wrong,
on that.
that means
Oh.
that may I'm good with that. Let's do that. Dinwiddie can be that guy. Sportshead's putting his money down on Dinwiddie being the backup
sure.
or the number 2 star to Beal. Points out that before his injury, averaged 22 points per game. Rui averages 13 points per game. That's one here. I was really hoping that he would have a good season. As mentioned, third year. Kind of trying
Just
to make
progress.
that leap. You saw it, right? You saw
And he's
that
still good
last
at it.
season. It could.
still
You
happen.
saw it. You saw it at the end of the year, especially, and
Yeah.
even into the playoffs. He played really well. I think one of the games he had
Same with
24
Gafford.
points, something like that. One of the
Yeah.
playoff games. He was getting aggressive.
And now
He
he's got
was-
his buddy Kispert there with him to help
Yeah.
out a little bit too.
So,
So,
hopefully this is just something he's going through, that he works through it, and that the time off that he took is going to help him to, get to where he needs to be.
very true.
And Sportshead's also saying Bradley Beal isn't leaving. 10 years in,
I don't know.
30 million under the cap, and the Wiz gets to the second round. That's high hopes. That's high hopes there,
bro.
Sportshead.
You know
That is
who
high
to lead?
hopes. That is high hopes.
High
but
hopes. High hopes.
I agree.
But-
If I'll say this, I agree with him. I agree with Sportsheads, them rather. If Wizards make it to the second round, Bradley Beal absolutely signs the extension.
Yeah.
If they make it to the second round, absolutely. My
Mhm.
worry for the Wizards is a 9th or 10th seed
Yeah.
where they have to do the play-in and they lose the play-in.
Yep. Then what you gonna do?
That to me, it's just like, did they show enough promise during the season to show? Did the Washington show them enough him enough to be like, hey, stick with us, or is he going to go to somewhere else that has championship pedigree?
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I always say about this, and Nathan and I have been talking about this all the way probably from the very first episode when we started.
That's PT, right? PT.
That's PT, pre-Trev. But we're now AT. We're after Trev. But we're thinking like we're trying to get in Bradley Beal's head. He has never, ever, ever once given any inkling that he wanted that he wants out. He has never said that. And we all think, well, if that was me, if our team is not winning, I need to go somewhere else. Well, you don't know that because he's never said that. He's never hinted at that. Even in the offseason, when all these rumors came out that he's thinking about considering whether or not he's going to sign a contract.
How do you think about considering?
Yeah, exactly. So that's not saying anything, but we just don't know because he's never said anything in this direction. No. He's always said something in this direction. But why do all of a sudden we think he's going to go this direction?
Ben Simmons.
What players tell you, oh, I want to leave? You even see this in Washington.
Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook, LeBron James.
No, don't you dare bring Brody into this because
why?
He wanted
damn
to
well Brody has never sat there and said, I want to be traded or anything like that. Don't you bring that in.
So are you telling me
that
Simmons
is trash? And
maybe it wasn't public, but he probably went behind the doors and said, I want to be traded, bro. I want to go back home.
I will give you the quotes on that. Yes, he did do that.
Where?
He did absolutely do that. You think the Wizards just traded him for the hell of it?
Yeah, no.
They traded him because he wanted to be traded.
To LA, and they even asked Bradley Beal, bro, you want to come to LA with me? And Bradley was like, no.
Yes.
Come on.
He did ask to be traded.
So Brody wanted to get the hell up out of there because all he was accomplishing was triple doubles. And he saw that they weren't going anywhere with just him and Bradley Beal. So he left.
And you obviously have a better chance to win when you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis on your squad too. Yeah. For sure. It's a much better chance than Bradley Beal and Thomas Bryant. At the time,
win-win situation. I really do think that was a win-win situation for Westbrook and for Wizards. I'm a big Westbrook guy. We know that born in Oklahoma, so I'm a Oklahoma City Thunder guy. The only time
used to be.
I'm a Wizards guy as well now. You can thank Westbrook for making that transition happen. When Thunder come to town, that's where my loyalty gets troubled. All right.
I put that up there just because,
as it says Amen Stoner.
Yeah,
it starts off with Amen Stoner. That's you didn't even read the rest of it.
I didn't. I didn't. You could have said all kinds of bad stuff, but
read the rest of it.
Put that up there. So it says his roots are planted. If he really wanted out, he would have already been gone. Is it too far-fetched to think in today's sports era someone actually is loyal?
And that's him.
So far, he has never said anything in the contrary. Or to the contrary. So I don't know why we all think that all of a sudden he's going to change just because they're losing. He's been here 10 years. He's seen nothing but losing. So why is this year like the year? He can still sign for more money here. He can still sign for more money here than he can anywhere else. Now they can do a sign and trade. But still,
now we can
he can sign for more money here than anywhere else. So he's staying.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and bring in our friend of the show, Chase Hughes, and see what he has to say. Warm welcome here to NBC Sports Washington's Chase Hughes. Thanks for joining us here on Ref the District's preview of the Washington Wizards season.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to what should be kind of a normal season. At least there's 82 games.
There you go.
That's true.
It is
very true.
It is a very exciting season for Wizards fans as Scott Brooks is no longer the head coach, and we have Wes Unseld Jr. and a lot of excitement there, at least with kind of new beginnings. It is like I mentioned just before here. It's kind of Christmas Eve for you. You got a big day tomorrow. Lots of opening day for NBA. Unpackaging the new coach. What are we expecting this year with Wes Unseld Jr.?
Well, the hope is a lot of defensive structure and a team that has a lot of capable defenders kind of putting it all together. Now, we haven't really seen that so far in the preseason. They had the worst defensive rating of any team. They allowed opponents to shoot like 43% from three, which was also dead last in the league. But over time, you're hoping that it's a very different story because he's come over from Denver, where he was associate head coach, got a lot of praise for his defensive work there with a roster that didn't have a rim protector like Daniel Gafford. So I think that's what you're looking for over time. But I think Wizards fans are really just going to like Wes Unseld Jr. When you hear him in press conferences, he's really, really smart. The way he breaks down the game, the terminology he uses, he's teaching us members of the media more and more about the game every day. And I think anyone who's a student of the game of basketball will appreciate the approach he takes.
Very nice. So, Chase, with all the offseason moves this year the Wizards made, bringing in Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, Spencer Dinwiddie to pair with Bradley Beal, do you think that it's going to take the entire season for them to gel? Because I know they've mentioned in the preseason that they see some things they've liked, they see some things they need to work on. With all the talent they have, is it going to take a long time, like I said, the whole season to gel? Or is it going to take half a season or what? How long?
Well, hopefully not an entire season, because if things are going poorly and Bradley Beal hasn't signed his contract extension, then things could get really interesting heading up to the trade deadline. But I do think it's going to take some time. I really appreciate Kyle Kuzma's honesty. He was on the broadcast talking to Chris Miller and said, look, it's not going to happen day one. It might be 10 games. It might be 20 games. And that's a quarter of a season. I do think that ultimately they have enough talent to make the playoffs and put it all together. Certainly they hope to get off to a better start than they have in recent years. Last year they were 0-5 and then 2-8 to start with their first 10 games. They have not had a winning record after the first 10 games. And I think it's been 5 years. So it's been kind of a trademark of this team to start slow. And now you've got all these new players. You've got a new coaching staff. It's definitely not going to be easy to put it all together immediately. But I certainly hope by, the 20-game mark, then they're starting to show the signs of a consistently competitive team, which is, I think, is going to be the biggest upshot of the moves that they made over the offseason. They have a lot of veterans, they have a lot of depth, and they have a lot of defenders. This seesaw playing up to your opponent, down to your opponent, I think those days are going to be in the past.
Very good.
Well, Chase, you kind of mentioned that there at the beginning of your answer, and it's kind of elephant in the room, right? Which is Bradley Beal's extension. Is he going to sign it? Is he not going to sign it? We've been talking about this for years, really, for the last few years. And for me, I've never heard him ever say, not one time, that he's ever wanted to leave. But does this season really make or break whether or not he's going to want to leave and not sign that contract?
Well, the offer's on the table. If he were to sign it soon, then that would change things. But until he does, or if he doesn't, then absolutely this is a different circumstance. It's all been in theory to this point. Like, okay, you want to sign Bradley Beal, or maybe you got to trade him, or maybe you risk losing him for nothing in free agency. And right now, that prospect is growing more and more realistic. I mean, he himself on media day, I asked him about the contract offer, and he said, well, there's no rush. I have all year to sign it. Well, in his mind, there's no rush, and it may behoove him to not sign it immediately because he can put some pressure on the front office. He can see how everything comes together to start the year. But it is going to put a ton of pressure on the Wizards if several months pass by and they don't have a deal with him, because he's a really good player, and the trade value is dropping. So even if you traded him at the trade deadline, you're going to get far less than you would have this past offseason or a year before that if you had traded him. So it's going to definitely arrive at decision time. Right now, I would expect him to at least take a wait-and-see approach for a little while longer. He set himself up with his last contract to get to next offseason, which will be 10 years of service. So this was kind of the plan all along. And talking to a member of the Wizards front office the other night, they kind of described the contract offer as more of a formality. Like, it was a gesture that they wanted to do, they felt was right. But they also said, let's be realistic. He can make a lot more money if he waits.
All right. Well, let's talk about the man who did sign an extension. Yeah, that's Daniel Gafford. You mentioned him as a rim stopper, and some people even credit partially, at least, for the turnaround for Wizards season last year. How important will he be for this season? Is he going to get a larger role? Because he did kind of have a bit of a minutes restriction, and then part of that was his conditioning. Is this going to be increased this year?
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have a huge role for the team. He's the projected starting center on opening night. Tommy Shepard, the GM, proclaimed that going into the year. And he looked even better in the preseason. Like, this guy was amazing last year. The Wizards got him at the trade deadline. He played 23 games and they won 17 of them. And they had already kind of turned the tide a little bit to go from one of the worst defenses in the NBA to about league average. With him, they were legitimately a top 5, top 10 defense. Best rim protector they've had in a long time. He only played 17 minutes a game last year, but was giving them about 2 blocks a game, 10 points, scoring efficiently. And then you look at him in the preseason, it's only 4 games, but he's rebounding way better. He's averaging even more blocks. He's only 23. So I think they're banking on him getting a lot better, and they signed him to a contract that could look like a bargain a few years from now. You know, he's got 2 years left on his current deal at about $3.7 million total combined those 2 years. He'll make another $40 million over the next 3 years. He'll be here through his age 27 season. If he turns into the player that they think he can be, that could be one of the biggest steal team-friendly contracts in the league, because he's super athletic. He's smart. He's very driven to succeed. He's got a high motor on the floor, on the court. I think there's every reason in the world to believe that he's going to continue to get better. And the Wizards have made sure that when he does get better and whenever he reaches his peak, whatever that peak is, it's going to be in a Wizards uniform.
Chase, kind of segueing from the center position, are we going to see Thomas Bryant at all this year on the floor? And how far is he in his rehab and development to getting back healthy?
Yeah, we'll see him on the floor probably. The way they describe it is sometime in December. So I don't know if that means early December, mid-December, late December or not. He had his surgery in February. It was a partially torn ACL. But, you know, he's going into a contract year. I think he has every reason to play it safe. The Wizards have every reason to play it safe. And obviously a lot has been made about them having 3 centers, and maybe that's a logjam. Well, right now they absolutely need both Daniel Gafford and Montrezl Harrell, because Thomas Bryant will be playing for 2 months. And when he comes back, I think they're going to need what he provides, which is 3-point shooting and efficient scoring around the rim. You know, they were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in basketball last year. And I think a big reason was because he got hurt, because he's a 40% 3-point shooter at the center position, which is pretty rare, even in this day and age.
Yeah.
So if he can come back and be that guy, given he does what was arguably their biggest weakness last year, I think he'll find his way to the floor. But certainly it's not going to be easy finding minutes for 3 different centers.
And that's funny. Sorry, Stoner, one more. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's funny you said weakness, because my next question real fast is, I know it's preseason, but what do you think is the team's Achilles heel this season? I mean, you mentioned defense is really bad too, but is there anything more specific to go along with that, or is it the offensive side of the ball? Or
right now, I think I would highlight 2 areas that might be related, and one of them is rebounding. This team was not very good rebounding just 2 years ago. They were a bottom. I think they were bottom 3rd in the league in just about every rebounding category. The same thing the year before is like ever since Marcin Gortat left, they had trouble replacing that. Of course, Dwight Howard is here. And then he got hurt. He only played 9 games, and that season was a disaster. It led to their GM losing his job. So rebounding was like a major problem. I think it was one of the biggest reasons why their defense struggled. Well, last year they were pretty good at rebounding, and they had a guy named Russel Westbrook who grabbed about 11.5 rebounds a game. And say what you want about the guy, he's a flawed player. He's not very efficient. He's one of the best rebounders in the league, and he's probably the best rebounder at his position in NBA history. So they had him. 11.5 rebounds a game, by far the best rebounder on the team last year. The second guy that came back would be Thomas Bryant. He averaged about 6 rebounds a game. So they don't have very many big rebounders. And they also had Robin Lopez, who's one of the best players in the league at boxing out. Alex Len, per 36, was a pretty good rebounder. So rebounding worries me. And then also, and this is related, like I said, I think they're going to have a problem with size at the center position and in their front court at times.
Yes.
Their biggest player is 6'10", and the guys that are 6'10", Thomas Bryant, Daniel Gafford, and Kyle Kuzma, they're not like super jacked either. You know, they're not like Isaiah Stewart in Detroit. So like, just for example, like when they play the Nets, Kevin Durant's going to be the tallest player on the floor. And when you play teams like the Bucks, the Sixers, and the Nuggets, who have Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic, like those guys are going to they're going to be by far the biggest player on the court, and they're already going to be the best player on the court. So you're going to have your hands full. I wouldn't be surprised if the Wizards by midseason are like, all right, we got to get some size at the deadline.
Yeah.
And who's that kid in Toronto that was in Miami last year? The Prince Precious
Precious Achiuwa. Yeah.
He was killing them in that preseason game on the board.
And
that's the kind of guy that's going to give him trouble. But looking at the overall roster, you've got, if you include Thomas Bryant, you've got what I think is 13 NBA or guys who deserve NBA minutes. Is that a good thing that you have 13 guys, or would you rather have 9 or 10 guys who are going to give you NBA minutes every night?
I think it's a good thing because the Wizards need to protect themselves against injuries. Injuries always happen in the NBA, and they seem to happen way worse to the Wizards than any other team.
I think it's the Washington sports thing, honestly.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's like maybe it's the humidity or something, but it's something about you got to protect against injuries. And last year the Wizards didn't have the most injuries, but actually, if you look at like how some websites have tried to kind of conceptualize how much injuries hurt each team. Thomas Bryant was the most significant injury that any team had last year because he missed a lot of games, and just based on like player value metrics, he was a lot better than the guys that they replaced him with, of course, until they got Daniel Gafford. So I think they're better suited to withstand injuries, and injuries are also probably likely going to take care of that little problem we're all talking about, where it's like, oh, how can you play all these wings? Yeah. Well, all it's going to take is 1 or 2 injuries and everything will fall into place. Right. So I think you got to expect that injuries will happen. And the Wizards, I think, are probably really well protected against it. Maybe you lose 2 or 3 guys, you can still keep things afloat. If half their roster gets injured, obviously they'll still have problems. But this is going to be a war of attrition, just like every NBA season is. And that's why I think they're pretty well built for the regular season. And that's why I think they're a playoff team.
All right. Well, we talked about weaknesses. Let's talk about strengths. How are the Washington Wizards going to win games?
I think defense will eventually be a strength. They've got a lot of personnel that can help on that end of the floor. I think they've got a lot of depth defensively. Daniel Gafford is a really good rim protector. I think they got better on the wing with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Kyle Kuzma. I think Spencer Dinwiddie, as long as his ACL injury is healed to the point where he can move laterally, I think he's going to be a plus at the point guard position defensively, in comparison to the guys that he's replaced, like John Wall and Russell Westbrook. He's really big. He's like 6'5", 6'6". He's very built. Yeah, he's a smart player. Long. Yeah, so I think Bradley Beal is probably not going to have to do nearly as much as he had to do in the past because he'll be on the court a lot of the times with 4 guys who can defend. Their entire point guard rotation can defend. Spencer Dinwiddie, Aaron Holiday, and Holo Neto. So certainly not every single player on their roster can defend, but enough where if you have the right coaching staff, and that's Wes Unseld Jr.'s reputation, you can put together a structure that will help you in that regard. Shooting, we've talked a lot about how they improved with their shooting. 3-point shooting, I think they're probably still going to be about a league average team, but I would think that defense and depth are going to be strengths for them. And, if you can build a good defensive structure and space the floor, then I think Bradley Beal's scoring will provide even more value than it has in the past, because maybe you get to a point where he's more refreshed at the end of games and his baskets can be the separators between wins and losses.
So you mentioned playoff team like a couple of times already. Are you saying playoff team as in play-in tournament to get in the playoffs, or they're going to have a definitive seed and not have to worry about that?
No, I think they'll be like the 8th seed or maybe the 7th seed and got to play through the play-in tournament. We saw last year the power of getting that 8th seed. You only got to win 1 game and you're in. You can technically lose 1 and you're still alive. I don't think they're going to have to get into the playoffs as the 9th or 10th seed. I think they'll be in that top 8. I don't think they can get into the top 6, though. I think it's going to be really difficult because the Eastern Conference is probably the deepest it's been in quite a while. I think you're going to have to win 40, 41 games to get that 8th seed. But I think they can do it. I think the Wizards are very well built for the regular season because of their depth. I think once you get to the postseason, then you might see that there's a pretty big gap between them and the top teams because they've got 1 star and a lot of these teams have 2 or 3 of them.
Very nice.
All right. Well, we'll have to have you back on when that gets closer. We want to appreciate Chase Hughes here for joining us on Ref the District's Washington Wizards preview of the season. He comes from NBC Sports Washington. Thank you, Chase, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Chase.
Absolutely. Hopefully this goes better than the Washington football season.
Oh, my God, bro.
We're leaving that in, Chase. We're leaving that in.
Go ahead. I'm a fan of the Washington football team, so I'm suffering with the rest of you.
Well, we have to hope that this season definitely goes better for the Washington Wizards than it's going for the Washington football team up to
Bro,
this point.
I bet Gavin's soccer team is having a better season than our football team right now. And that's no shade to Gavin. I'm just saying he's 8 years old. So like I told him 8 or 9, whatever the hell he is. Yeah.
The before we move on to what we think is going to happen for the season, because we need to get there. All right.
Yeah.
We need to, set the record straight here on a couple things.
Uh-oh.
My guys came
Let's go.
after. Well, I'm not gonna put Trevor in that. Trevor just kind of.
No, you can put me
in
in
the
it.
back.
We're a team.
Okay, you're gonna stick with Stoner on this.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't want you to catch some of this. I didn't want you to catch some of the
Nah,
shrapnel.
you're right.
man.
You're right. Let me sit back a minute. Go ahead.
I was about to say Stoner was the one who doubled down and trying
Yep.
to take my man Russell Westbrook out and saying that he wanted out of Washington,
Yep.
which, according to the GM Tommy Shepard, was never the case.
Would you care to read the quote?
Can you? Is there a way
Or
you can
would
put
I
you
it
like
really
me to
have
read
to
it?
make sure the record
Okay.
is straight on that. Shepard
Okay.
said in an interview
Okay.
with NBC Sports Washington, Chris Miller, Russell actually never asked to move on. He just said, if I can get to the Lakers, that'd be something I would love to do. If not, I'll be back here. He didn't ask for a trade. They approached him.
That's what
asking
you
for a
call.
trade, bro.
That is such a spin quote
No.
to make
Yes.
Russell Westbrook look
Yes.
good.
Yes, he definitely.
If I
has
can
that
go to the
trade.
Lakers, that'd be great. But I'm not asking for a trade.
No.
Oh yeah.
He said he would
hey,
love
honey,
to be back.
if
They offered him to trade him to the Clippers, and he was like, hell no. He
Hell
was just
no.
like, no,
So-
I'll stay here. I'll stay here.
honey, I want to
They
go to the
facilitated
Washington.
a trade. What it was, what you're trying to take down my man, all right?
No, I want to
What
hear this.
happened
Thunder.
here
Go
I got no
ahead.
problem with him asking for a trade. I
No, you
don't have
don't.
any problem with that.
What was the hey honey?
You're
thing
making
you
it
about to
seem
say?
like he's out here being Ben Simmons like,
Oh,
and he's not.
No.
What is happening
didn't
is
compare him to Ben
this
Simmons.
is an MVP player. This is an all-star player, and this is GM's understanding. Like, hey, like we need to get value out of you. And they're going to him because I know you want to bring up Oklahoma City. He never asked to be traded out of Oklahoma City. Sam Presti realized they were about to hit rebuilding mode, and we're like, hey, I realize you don't want to be here with a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds, and we're going to send you elsewhere. He might have asked to get traded out of Houston. I'll give you that one. Although the
Yeah.
article that you shared was presumptive at best. That was
ooh,
not a great
Smoky.
resource for your argument. But let's not try talking like Westbrook was being, demanding anything. He was
Stoner.
approached by Tommy Shepard. And Tommy Shepard's like, "Hey, would you want to leave?" Tommy's this, and Westbrook was just like, "I'd go to the Lakers." And Tommy's just like, "Well, how about the Clippers?" And he's like, "Fuck that." Pardon my language, kids. Whoops, gonna get in trouble for that one. Said bump that, and
Bananas that.
bananas that one, and
too
yeah,
late.
definitely get in trouble for that one. And he said he would have stayed with the Wizards, but they worked it out the trade for the Lakers, which we all agree seems like it might work out for the Wizards because now they have depth. This is a roster that looks like it's deeper than it has been in years. You have Carita, who thinks 9 or 10th seed. You have Chase, who thinks that this might be the 8th seed. He wasn't willing to go too much higher than that. Where do you guys feel like the season's going to end?
Well, hang on. He gets to go on this whole
I know,
thing
right?
and doesn't give us a chance to
you,
respond.
Stoner? You see that? He
You can
just shut
respond
you down
elsewhere.
quick, dog.
We're talking
Look at
about
that. He let
Okay,
he got your
Adrian,
chance.
Woj Bomb over here
we go.
said that Russell Westbrook wanted out of OKC and Paul George beat him to the punch. Okay, that's all. I rest my case on that.
Yeah.
Rest your
Okay.
case. So,
Again,
the
one of
Wizards
us
that
actually, is a diehard fan, actually in and out was
Which means
with the
what?
reporters and I actually
means you're an
followed.
apologist.
I'm not just going to the national reporters and getting whatever highlights.
The people that everybody goes to for inside information.
Pretty
No,
much.
you want inside information, you go to people like Chase, you go to the Caritas, right? You go to the ones who
Yeah,
actually
for sure.
are the beat reporters.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
that's what I
I
did.
agree with that. Okay. But
All right,
but
thank
anyway,
you.
but you're an
Back off,
apologist
Brody.
and see
Back
and you're-
off, Brody.
defender no matter what. But anyway, all right. So let's talk about this
DC
upcoming
defender.
season and what we think. We
Okay.
talked about it a little bit. Their over-under is right around 33 and a half, 34, 30, somewhere in that area. I think they go
All
over
right.
that. I don't think they go much over that.
Yeah.
They are a good team. They are
Mhm.
not a great team. I think they're better than the Knicks. I think they're better than even Atlanta. I think they're, when we're talking about playoff teams that were ahead of them last year.
I don't
And
know,
that's
bro.
probably about it. I think Boston's better than them.
Oh,
And Boston was the 7th seed, right? So
yeah.
so they're right there. They're going to be right there, 8, 9, 10, whatever. They're going to be in a playoff game,
I
a
really,
play-in game,
I hope.
right? For sure. I think for sure they're going to be in somewhere in that range. They're not terrible. They're not great, but it's going to be an exciting season. They're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Kind of like last year. They were fun to watch last year with Westbrook. No
Yeah.
doubt that he brought so much energy and just so many highlight plays, and Beal was scoring. I think Beal's scoring is going to go down because he has a better support system. But I think they're just going to be an average.
It's also
team.
harder to go up. That man was averaging quite
Yeah.
a bit a game.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Well, I'll tell you, I think, man, I don't know. I think they are going to be a play-in, playoff team too as well. I think it's going to take some time for all these brand new pieces to gel. And luckily they have 82 games, but the East is so competitive and better this year. It's going to be hard. Like you mentioned the Hawks and the Knicks and stuff, but they've all been playing together for the past 2-3 years. At least the core. They have a core.
For sure.
We don't have a core. We don't have a core yet. We just have Bradley Beal. I mean, on paper, we should be able to do that, but I don't know. And the game is on the background for me right now. Nets and Bucks and Milwaukee.
Oh, I mean, they can't touch those two teams.
So yeah, so I think they'll be right where the Hawks were last year. I think we have a.
Well,
chance
I mean,
to
the
be
Hawks were
of
like
this
a
year.
4
what,
seed.
4th seed. They
Yeah, I know,
battled all the way to the 4th seed.
Or
You never
five-
know, bro.
4, I
If
think.
like you said, Trae Young was the star, and he just had role players that did their role and got up to where they needed to
And
go.
did it very
so I think
well.
so if Bradley Beal is the star, and then KCP, Kispert, Dinwiddie, all the players they brought in are role players, they have a chance to do something special like the Hawks did like last year. So you never know, but realistically, as of right now today, they are a play-in playoff team.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I'm thinking about 41, 42 wins on the season. I'd love to see more. It really hinges on those other players, right? Who's going to step up? Is it going to be Spencer Dinwiddie? Is it going to be, is Rui's health and abilities is he going to grow in his 3rd season? Are you going to get enough out of Kispert? Is Bertans going to play up to his contract? These are the questions that need to be answered across the board. And Sports Heads brings up there's injuries going to be across the league. You never know how it's gonna hit. And to be fair, that could happen to Washington.
Yeah, of course.
As
They
much
can make
as
some trades.
We don't like to talk about injuries on 2/3 on the top half of this podcast.
Yeah, we don't
like
do
to talk
that
about injuries. Now that bottom third. That bottom third here, he's okay bringing up injuries.
Listen to him. I don't care.
I mean, Beal could very easily blow out his.
Stop
knee.
it!
I mean,
I knew it was coming. I knew it was
he
coming.
could.
I knew it was coming. I
mean,
set
by
him up
me
for it. I
saying
knew
it-
it was coming.
By me saying it has no impact on whether or not it's actually going to happen.
Okay, I don't know if you forgot about what we said at the beginning of the show, but you've manifested 2 things for the Wizards this season, which obviously means you have some kind of power and pull, and you just put the injury bug on Bradley Beal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Wizards are not making the playoffs at all because Bradley Beal is gonna. Yeah. Nah.
Well, they're not beating Brooklyn, right?
No.
Or the Sixers, or
No.
Milwaukee,
No.
or give me
Atlanta.
or Miami.
Oh, Miami. Yes.
They're not beating them. So that's already 4 teams ahead of them. And
Right.
then the last year, the
You
teams
got
that were ahead of
Hawks,
them were
Knicks,
the Hawks, Knicks,
Charlotte. I mean,
Charlotte's right there.
Orlando.
Toronto, Indiana.
Yeah. So
Right. So
the
all
East
those
is
teams
getting
are
better.
improving too. It's not like
Yeah.
we're the only team that got better.
It's a long season.
So it's a long
82
season.
games.
Yeah,
We're going to
brother.
keep track of it. We'll be
Yes.
back for our Wednesday shows.
So wait.
Wednesday tomorrow. What's that?
We
What
haven't
happened?
even talked. They play tomorrow. We haven't even talked about it. It's the
Okay.
first game is tomorrow against
All
the
right.
Raptors without Rui. What's going to happen? Are we winning on the road? Or are we
Yes.
taking the L?
No, they'll
We
win.
actually didn't ask Carita or Chase that. We messed up there. We should have talked to them about tomorrow's game.
Yeah,
They're winning.
the season.
Toronto
They're
is
playing
not
tomorrow.
that good. Toronto's not that good.
We're
I
winning
mean,
tomorrow.
they've lost Lowry.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some nice young pieces as well, but especially that dude who just killed them last year, Gary Trent Jr. He's a heck of a player, a heck of a shooter, but they don't have enough to
Siakam.
hang with. And they got Siakam still, and of course the one I talked about was Precious Achiuwa. He really showed out in the preseason. He's a young guy as well. Mm-hmm. They have some young talent. I don't think they can hang with the Wizards. So no, Wizards win tomorrow.
Let's go.
I'm gonna take Wizards tomorrow as well. I think that Carita talked about it, right? They've been improving. They didn't win anything in the preseason. Preseason doesn't matter though. The last preseason game though, the starters played most of it. You got the bench players in against starters, and that's where the game kind of got out of hand.
Now,
I think you play the full 4 quarters. I think they take down Toronto tomorrow.
and I know we're going a little hour real quick, but you said that you kind of evaded or alluded to the bench. You said the starters were brought. I mean, the bench came in, the starters kept playing, we lost. Do you really think the Wizards have a deepest bench as people think we do?
I do.
Really? You really do?
I do like their bench, especially compared to the last couple of years.
To last season,
they do have a bench. But look, no bench can hang with another team's starters. You got Derrick Rose, the former MVP, who was playing out of his mind. Julius Randle, who was a top 5 MVP last year, he was still playing. RJ Barrett was still in there. Somebody on Twitter called him a dark horse MVP candidate, which I saw
crazy. That.
But
it
still,
was we'll call him out. It was the beard. It was the beard who said that.
Was it the beard? Yeah, that's right. It was the beard. Right. Come on, get out of here.
Shout out to the beard
right now, but
that's who they were.
Authentic
and we had like Kispert, and we had Neto, who's and I think it was Neto and Holiday were in the game at the same time. There are guys that are not going to be in the fourth quarter of a close game. And what's good about it is that Wes Unseld did not see it as, we have to win this game to look good. We're going to continue in getting our guys the minutes that they need and everything, get ready for the real season. Preseason means nothing.
I'm just a little shaky on depending on Montrezl Harrell being our center, and Daniel Gafford's really good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I see him more as a stretch 4. I don't really see him as a certified center.
Well, he's not a stretch 4 because when you say stretch, that means he can go out to the 3-point line and hit. He can't.
The stretch.
No, he can't even hit 15 footers.
He could.
He dunks.
I know he dunks,
and he puts it back. That's all he does.
But then, we don't have a true offensive threat down low. Then, if that's the case,
unless Bryant comes back healthy, he is an offensive threat for sure. He's a stretch 5.
They got to wait 2 months. So
right, exactly.
That's a long time. So I really think they're still missing that true big man piece.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see how the season progresses. Like I said, we'll keep track. This is Ref the District's Wizards season preview. We're going to keep up to date on all of our DC sports. We do that on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch channels. And you can catch us audio only on your favorite platform, whether or not that's Apple, Google,
you look so grumpy,
Spotify.
Bro.
What's going on?
Star looks grumpy.
He said I was looking grumpy because I was focused on Nathan, man. I was like,
"What do you?" He said the same thing after the end of the show. What are you focusing on?
These two goons. Well, I tell you what, we're sponsored by Pacers Running. Make sure that if you're not a runner, they will make you a runner. You can go out there, get yourself a nice pair of comfortable shoes because that's what you're missing. Pacers Running. Sponsoring Ref the District. And until next time, which is tomorrow, 7 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Be a fan.
Be a fan.
We love Washington, and we some die-hard fans. Yeah, we are. You know we keep it on 10. Let's talk about the offense. 1, 2, 3, let's go. And they gifted. We are Ref the District. Podcast. Come on now and join us.